foremost, I just want to get started with your background. I know that you're an attorney. Um, I don't know if you have any other degrees as well as a JD, but if you want to go a bit into your educational background, that'd be great.
Sure. So I graduated from Florida State University in 2010. I got a bachelor's in finance, real estate, insurance. That was paid completely by Florida Prepaid and Bright Futures. I don't know if you know what Bright Futures is, but here in Florida we have Bright Futures. So I didn't have any loans from that. I left. I went to law school at University of Florida, where I got a JD and an MBA. My MBA was funded completely. I got a full scholarship, and I have law school loans. Then after that, I graduated, started working. I worked for the government until June. So I got a master's in public administration.
Wow.
So yeah, that was funded. There's a program where if you work for the government, you can go back to school for free.
Mm.
So I got that one for free. And then now I'm getting a PhD in politics and international affairs at University of South Florida. And that I have a fellowship for. So that one's funded. So I have law school's loans. That's it.
Man, I want to be like you. You are so accomplished. Wow, that is so impressive.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So that's such a blessing that you've gotten the majority of your education covered. That's awesome. But as far as
Yep.
your law school, as far as your law school student loan debt, has that been a hindrance in like your wealth journey or accomplishing any goals, family planning? Has that set you back at all? And in what ways, if you would like to go into it?
So I worked in government for 7.5 years
Mhm.
because of the loan forgiveness program. That was the major factor in why I stayed in government so long. I recently left because I had some issues at work after 8 years, and so I won't be doing loan forgiveness. And while I do think that it would have been a great benefit, and it did significantly affect my life because I stayed in government for 8 years. Depending on that,
Yeah.
I think it would have been financially better for me to have gone to the market earlier because I have probably like $130,000 in loans because it goes up. I started in the 90s somewhere, but because you
Mm.
don't pay the full amount, interest, I think it's like 120 or 130 right now.
Your
And
interest
it
rate?
No, 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 no. I think it's
Oh,
gone up over the 8 years, probably about 40,000. And I don't know what the interest rate is. I don't keep up with any of that because, like I said, I thought it was going to be forgiven. I was counting on that. I was paying $300 a month, so nothing significant. And yeah, but I say all of that to say I I left my job this year, and now I make, depending on how you look at it, I make $40,000 to $50,000 more than I did at my government job.
hmm.
So when you look at it over the long run, I really sacrificed. I'm not going to say I sacrificed my career because I was doing other things, but as far as financially, I really was at a disadvantage because even with $100,000 in loans, I made $50,000 a year more coming out. So if I would have left 3 years ago, I would have made enough to pay off the loans. Not that I would have done it, but you get what I'm trying to say.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, the amount that I could have made in private practice would have covered the amount I lost from having to pay the loans back. So I would say that's how it's affected me, was because it caused me to make I mean, I liked working in government, so I'm not going to say
Yeah.
that it was a disadvantage, but it caused me to make that decision to stay, and I lost on some financial benefits, I guess.
I see what you're saying. And when you think about this, do you see any effect that your student loans has on your mental health? Because like sitting with that might be a bit frustrating or a bit like maybe even consuming sometimes, like, if I played my
Sure.
cards a bit better, maybe this wouldn't be my situation.
So I think that that probably affects you more when you're not in like a doctor or a lawyer. I think you expect that pretty early going into it that you're probably going to be taking on a large amount of debt. So what I will say is for law school, ended up at the University of Florida, but I also got into Columbia University, in New York. And
Mm.
in order to attend there, it would have been $400,000 as opposed to $100,000. And I think that for me, that would have been a significant burden and would have caused me to have to stay in private practice in order to pay it back.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so I say that to say um I had a little scholarship from University of Florida, probably like 10, $20,000. So it helped. And I think where my student loan debt is kind of average, I think most lawyers, unless their parents paid for their loans or they starved or something, when they come out, they're at about $100,000 worth of debt.
Mm,
So I don't think it affects my mental health as much because I'm just kind of where everybody else is.
yeah,
Yeah. And I don't like, so for us, they have all these incentives and like the pay as you earn program and stuff.
yeah,
My student loan bill every month is like $300. So, my cable bill is almost that much. So it wasn't that bad. We're on a pause right now, as I'm sure you know, so we're not paying it. And during this pause is when I got a new job. So
I
I think if you talk to me when we start having to pay and I have to recertify and my payment goes up to $1,200 a month, I think I'll have a different attitude about it. I don't know that it's going to be 1,200, but I think it's going to be like 700 or 800 easy. So I think that that's going to be a lot more significant than the nothing I'm paying now. Sorry,
yeah.
my hair is doing weird stuff and I'm like looking at it and
Oh, it looks good. It looks good. And oh, what was my next question for you? You just said something that I really wanted to touch back on. Oh, goodness. That was what I was going to ask you. So I know that you have about one, two, three, four, and you're working on a fifth degree.
correct.
Right. So I would have to imagine that perhaps if you weren't so fortunate and like you didn't have four out of those five degrees covered, maybe your student loan
I
debt,
wouldn't have gone.
you wouldn't have
I
gone.
wouldn't have gone.
I
Mm-mm.
see. Okay.
The
Alright.
PhD and the master's that I got after law school, I wouldn't have gotten those degrees if they
Yeah.
weren't covered.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
wouldn't have. I would not have taken on more debt. Law school was like that's all the debt I was going to do. So had these not been free, I wouldn't definitely would not have gotten more degrees.
Period. I understand. And growing up, what messages were given to you like via family, school, like when you were in high school first applying to college, what were you told about tuition and taking loans out? Were you misguided at all or were you given the honest truth?
So I'm very fortunate. Both of my parents graduated from college, and both of them have advanced degrees. My mom is a judge, so I felt like very prepared for the process because they walked me through it. I had Florida Prepaid College Fund, which covered the amount they started paying for it when I was born. Um, I've always been intelligent. I think some of my identity is wrapped in my intelligence for sure. So I always knew I was going to college. When I graduated high school and everybody's all excited, like, oh, my kid graduated high school. When people would ask my mom, she was like, I'm excited, it's cool, but this is not a
Yeah.
big deal because she's going to keep going. Like, this is not, it's an accomplishment, but she was kind of like, it doesn't matter that much because she has more to do before we're satisfied. So I think that the lesson was always instilled in me. And I think that because I had the bright futures and because I had prepaid college, I kind of was pretty aware and I kind of understood the process. What I will say is, I think for African Americans, maybe females, males too, we don't emphasize the importance of Ivy League enough. We don't emphasize like how much of a benefit that could provide. And I get the whole HBCU, PWI argument, but especially as a lawyer, there are jobs that won't even look at your resume if it doesn't come from an Ivy League school. And I don't know that we're taught that, um, and how much it does matter. I think we have these delusions of grandeur, like, oh yeah, HBCU, it's amazing, and I'm sure it is. I'm not taking anything away from the experience that you get from an HBCU, but I think I wasn't educated, and most of us as African Americans aren't educated on the benefits that come with an Ivy League education. And whether you consider those benefits or not, like being able to work in certain industries, certain places, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that I don't feel like I was informed of those enough. And I feel like when we as African Americans are applying to college, Caucasians have college SAT prep. They take SAT prep right in 10th, 11th grade. They get tutors to do well on the SAT. And I didn't have that. I scored probably like 30 or 40 points less than what I needed in order to get Fulbright futures. And I just went with it because we don't do that. We don't take prep courses and stuff. So I underestimated the importance of that. And I think that some of us, um, even on a smaller scale, when we're preparing for college, we don't take the SAT seriously enough. So some of us miss out on scholarship money and end up with loans just because we don't take that seriously enough. When I went to law school, I did take a prep course and my score improved like 100 points. And that's how I was able to get into Ivy League universities. I had more recruiting me. I just chose to go in state because I still underestimated the importance of the Ivy League. So I think that overall, that's what I would say, that I wasn't guided enough. I went to a school in the hood, for lack of a better term, and they were just like, go to college, doesn't matter where, just go. And I feel like I should have at least been educated better on the advantages and disadvantages of HBCUs too. I don't know that I was educated in that direction either. It was kind of like, if you're not that smart, you go to HBCU. If you're in the middle, you go here. And if you're super intelligent, you go to the Ivy League. Like that was how I was taught. And that's not necessarily how that operates. There are benefits to going to HBCUs and there are benefits to going to PWIs and there are costs to going to both. And I don't think I was educated in that direction.
Now, do you think, looking back on it, you would have gone to Columbia and taken out the additional $300,000 in loans?
I have that conversation with myself sometimes. I don't know.
You don't?
I don't, knowing what I know now, I think the loans is a major problem, right?
Mhm.
Like the loans for me was the biggest factor. But I think if you want to get seriously involved in politics right now as an African American, putting that Ivy League degree on there, I mean, President Obama came from the Ivy League, Michelle came from the Ivy League. Um, Kamala was at a HBCU, but she also wasn't elected. She was chosen by Joe Biden. So I don't know. I don't know where I want to end up. I don't know. But I think if that was the route I wanted to take, like getting high into politics, I think that that's a cost I would have had to have bared. But I don't know if I would have wanted to. I don't know. I still don't know if it will weigh out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it for undergrad. I will say that I wouldn't have. If I had the option to go to Ivy League for undergrad, I don't think anybody should have that many loans for undergrad. I discourage it.
Absolutely. You bring up President Biden, and I wanted to know if I could get your thoughts on his, I don't want to say it's his failure, but his,
He ain't doing nothing. He's not. I
it's,
mean, he's not doing any. So like he agreed that $10,000 would be reasonable, right? Like everybody's proposing 50. He's like, no, I'm not doing 50. Yeah, but other than putting a hold on it, which is cool, but for somebody like me who's no longer in government, that just means it's longer I'm gonna have to pay these things back, right? Because I'm not making qualified payments. So I'm just gonna be paying them back even longer. It's not like they're going away. I think that forgiving loans would be good, and they forget. I agree with the arguments. Like we just bailed out the industries like trillions and trillions of dollars, and people make the argument that, oh, if we bailed out student loans, then um, the industry would collapse. We bail out housing, nothing collapses. We
Mhm.
bail out the airlines. We just recently, that was in COVID, we bailed them out, nothing happened. So why is student loans so much different? And
Yeah.
then everybody makes the argument like the older generations, I had student loans, so I had to pay mine back, so you should have to pay yours back. Well, that's a stupid argument. It's just dumb. Just because you did something in your generation, if it was wrong, it was wrong. So
And not only that,
um
they were going to school, even scale to like
right. It
inflation.
was so much
It was
cheaper.
so much cheaper. They could pick up a
Right.
part-time job and pay their tuition with their checks.
Yeah, and we cannot. I have a friend, one of my closest friends has $50,000 in loans from undergrad. And it's crazy, but
Oh, dang. Undergrad?
undergrad. But she just kept going. She was like failing classes and stuff. And like, when you're in college, you just get the money every semester, the financial aid comes and you take it and
You don't think
like,
about it.
yeah. And then you owe it back and then it's cyclical. So whatever.
Yeah. Okay, I see. So you're disappointed in President Biden as well. Most women are that I've interviewed.
Yeah, I would say he hasn't. I don't know that I'm so excited about the things they're proposing for him to do, because when you have as many loans as I do, 120,000, $10,000, that's not going to do anything for my loan. Just,
Yeah.
but I do notice that he did promise to do something and nothing has been done. So I will say I'm not personally like angry about it, like go take out my pitchfork, but I kind of get why everybody else is, especially if you're like a teacher or something who has a hard time paying them back. And you probably only have $10,000 to $15,000 worth of loans, and that could really make a difference
Yeah.
for you. I totally get why somebody like that would be upset.
No, absolutely. I understand your perspective. And my next question for you is more so about your career and where you're at, the trajectory you're headed down. Do you see your white male counterparts with the amount of advanced degrees that you have? Or are you usually the most decorated employee in the rooms that you enter?
I'm usually the most decorated. I've never met anybody who has as much education as I do. I mean, I've met people who have a JD and a PhD, but I also have two masters.
Yeah,
And no, I've never met any. I'm sure they exist, but I haven't met anybody with 5 degrees.
I see. And in your exact in the same position that you have, do your white male counterparts? They definitely don't have that many degrees.
No,
Yeah,
no, but
yeah,
the higher you get as a professional, the more I always tell, I have this kind of argument with, not argument, this discussion with my coworkers and with other lawyers in the industry. As a Black woman, people are less likely to believe what you have to say.
mm,
They're more likely when I call them on the phone, when I call clients or call witnesses on the phone, they're more likely to Google me. And they tell me on a regular basis, my name is Janae Thomas. That's not a white name. I've met white people with that name, but I sound like I'm African American. So I've had victims on cases or clients told me that they've Googled me to make sure I was legit. They don't do the same things to the white male counterparts. I mean, it is what it is, because when you Google me, you're going to see, and they always call back and they're like, okay, I'm okay with you because you have education, you pass the test. And that's part
Okay,
of the reason
I'm
why I
not,
did it.
I don't have to prove anything. Yeah.
You don't, but you do. So
That's ridiculous. Yeah. That sounds about right. I interviewed a woman in Michigan and she has her PhD in higher education and she serves on the Michigan State Board and she said all of the white men that she works with, none of them have as many degrees as she has. And she just not just, but she has a BA, a master's, and a PhD, but she was like they all just have
mhm,
bachelor degrees. She was like,
right.
I had to take out these loans. I had to
Mhm,
spend this much time in school just to get the same position that they have, which is,
right.
you know,
Right, just to be in the same position that they are, and they still get promoted over us.
and they still
But
more.
getting those degrees makes it harder for them to justify those promotions. That's why I do it. And when they try to say, oh, Janae, but you're not as good or you're not as whatever, and give me those BS excuses, nobody can take those letters from behind your name. So, like, am I really not as smart? So now you got to come up with another reason. And they will. Don't get me wrong, they will come up with another reason why a white male is better than you are, but they're gonna have to think harder about it. So
You said they'll have to get creative.
yeah, they're gonna have to come a little better than, oh, but he's just a little smarter, or he just knows a little better, or whatever they like to use. I've through the PhD, I've started publishing articles and things. So
Wow.
gotta
What are you getting? What is your concentration on? What are you defending?
so my dissertation is about stand your ground, um, the self-defense laws,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, the like Ahmaud Arbery,
Mhm.
that was a big stand your ground case. Trayvon Martin was the first one that got large media attention,
And those were
things
both
like
in
that.
Florida, right? Yeah.
No, Ahmaud was in Georgia, but it's the
Uh,
same law.
Yeah.
Florida, Georgia, Texas, those are the big ones. Florida was the first. Texas has expanded it exponentially. And Georgia just is Georgia. Outside of Atlanta, it's just a different world to live in. So to go back to your question, yes, I think statistics show that African American women are have more degrees than any other demographic.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I can't speak to anybody else's motivation, but I think that's probably part of the reason why, because if we don't, it's like people just don't listen to us. Black males can kind of relate to their white male counterparts in that they're both male and they can bond over sports or male, masculine, patriarchal things that they have these conversations about. And white females can bond with white males because they're white. They have that in common. But Black women in professional spaces dealing with white male bosses, which is kind of how it usually operates, you can't get those, we call it good old boy um, conversations or good old boy promotions. You can't get that
Uh,
here. It's straight merit for us. So we have to be the most educated. We have to be the hardest working in order to get the same amount as far as the people who are just smoozing with the boss after work. Because I don't want to talk to them about the stupid stuff they talk to after work. So
Yeah, no, 100%. Very well said. Absolutely. That's a shame. But you are right. That is one of the reasons why Black women have such bad student loan debt. And also just because, like, we get
mhm,
terrible interest rates and
mhm,
we're not
mhm,
getting, we weren't raised given the resources and information.
correct,
I interviewed one woman and her mother didn't know what FAFSA was. She didn't know what FAFSA was.
correct.
She just went and took out loans.
Yeah. So
So,
I have a mentee. I'm very big. We have a program here where we get paired with
hmm,
first generation high school students in the ninth grade. We get paired with them and we kind
first
of
generation
walk
high
them,
school.
huh?
First generation high school students?
No, first generation college, but we get paired with them as ninth graders to
Oh,
kind of guide them
no.
through. high school and make sure that they stay on track with all of the things that they need for college. And so my first one just graduated this year. I'm
Nice.
so proud. She graduated number 4 in her class, but she has none of this information about colleges or that she needed. Her mom, she's from Cuba. Her mom doesn't speak English. Her dad does not speak English. They don't know. They don't know anything about college. So other than what the school and I was telling her, she had no information and to know about like go in the summer to see if you like it. And then if you don't, you can transfer out by fall. Just little tips and tricks. Take dual enrollment classes as opposed to AP classes because they help your GPA and you don't have to like take an exam at the, you don't know any of that stuff if you don't have somebody there. I
Helping.
was fortunate enough, like I said, both of my parents were have advanced degrees, so they could read a syllabus and they could kind of guide me through it. But a lot of women, a lot of Black women don't have that at home, so they're just navigating this on their own, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. Well, this Zoom is designed to be very aggressive and it will stop at 30 minutes. So we have about 60 seconds or less left. But I
Okay,
thank you so much for your input, for having this conversation with me,
no
Janae.
worries.
Yeah, and I guess I'll look for you on the hill. I feel like I'm gonna see you soon.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, or you're already doing big things, but I'll see you on TV soon.
Well, thank you very much. It was nice talking to you.
Okay, it was nice talking to you too. Bye, Janae.
Bye.
Thank you.